Hey everybody, I'm Nathan George, and this week on the Digital Marketing Wingman podcast, we're talking to Garrett Mehrguth from Directive Consulting over in the States. He runs a B2B digital marketing agency, and he scaled his business from a six-figure business to a multi-million-dollar business. So he shares some of his insights and experience on scaling a business in this week's episode. Hope you enjoy. Welcome to the Digital Marketing Wingman podcast, the podcast where we bring you helpful tips and advice on websites, Google, and social media. All right, everybody, welcome to the Digital Marketing Wingman podcast. This is episode number 9, and today we've got a bit of a treat for you because we've actually got an international guest on the show. Welcome to Garrett Mehrguth from Directive Consulting.
Hey, Garrett. Thanks, Nathan. Glad to be here, man. So it's great to be on the show. It's crazy technology lets us chat across the world right now. So glad to be here and having a great time.
Yeah, awesome. Now, you're the co-founder and the CEO of Directive Consulting. Tell us a little bit more about what they do and Yeah,
so Directive is a B2B and enterprise search marketing agency. We help in-house marketers at companies kind of navigate search and figure out how they can make their brands not only more discoverable, but also generate leads. And so it's kind of a process of positioning brands to be discovered within search engines, and as well as generating leads and tracking that all the way down to sales data instead of marketing data. So it's a pretty robust offering that's fully focused on search, and yeah, we're having a blast doing it.
Okay, and what's your story? How did you come to be where you are now?
Hard work, luck, and I guess kind of just falling into it. I started this agency right out of getting my master's. So I graduated in about 3 years, did my master's in a year, and was working a couple jobs, was selling social media calendars on Fiverr, independent contractor for a couple guys, and then I kind of fell into algorithms by figuring out how to show up on Fiverr's homepage for my social media calendar. And after kind of figuring that out, I was like, I wonder if I could figure Google out. So I started reading everything that Moz and Search Engine Land had written and kind of started to figure out. I printed some flyers. I had my Peugeot 103 SP moped from 1978 that I was riding around trying to, get new clients. Eventually got a Mediterranean restaurant as a customer, and not really with search though, more just around general marketing consulting, getting his Yelp set up, his Facebook set up, kind of just doing really, really basic entry level kind of marketing stuff. Yeah. And from that, I kind of learned a lot because, on the 30th day of working with him, I came in to get my check. He said, come back tomorrow. I said, great. Showed up the next day, and the whole place was boarded up. And so that was actually the very first ever engagement at Directive. So it started with frustration and failure. And, no matter how successful you are, those two things don't go away, frustration and failure. Yeah. And so it's been a crazy journey, but that's kind of how we started, yeah.
And so we might get into it further into this, but niching down, did you know that you wanted Directive to be B2B from the start? Or was that something you kind of just fell into?
Yeah, no clue. Definitely no clue. I mean, the whole thing I've fallen into. So I'm not some strategic genius who was trying to build this B2B agency from the start. I mean, if I were to redo it now, after 5 years experience working with blue chip brands and everything we've accomplished, I would do things definitely differently. Would you change anything? I'm like, hell yeah, I changed a lot of things. And so, but for that, we really did start just mostly local, so I was doing that, that one Mediterranean restaurant, and then, a hookah shop, and then a plumber, and then a color psychiatrist. She called herself the color whisperer. So she would do interior design for your mood based, and then pick out all sorts of crazy, just small businesses for, average account was like $250 a month. I thought we were balling. And that was kind of, how we started. It was just trying to create value. And for as much value that I could or we could create, we would charge. And now we get to charge more because we can create more value. But yeah, it's been definitely a process that had very humble beginnings, for sure.
Yeah, right. And Now you're much larger than, obviously your clients are much larger. Tell us a little bit more about, I guess, your team and the type of clients that you work with.
Yeah, we have an awesome team. Full team of directors and leads. On the management side, no accounts, really strategic, focused. We got over 60 employees. Only working with about 70 something accounts. So very, very focused on growing through quality of accounts, not quantity of accounts.
Yeah.
Working with blue chips and awesome brands, and really just now focused on how do we help these people. I think it's such a different approach, that we're learning is when you're in professional services or in an agency and you're working with someone, that person puts a lot on the line when they say, I recommend Directive to CMO, VP, board, whatever that is. And for us, it's really important delivering and serving that person honorably and respectfully and accomplishing what we set out to together. And so, now it's really about working with those individuals at these large organizations and supporting their goals. We also work a lot in the mid-market, I still think the mid-sized companies are pretty darn big, but they're not necessarily the enterprise companies. But no, it's been a really fun journey, and just getting to support those people and help them look good, is get raises, get promoted. I mean, to me, is all part of the fun. It's not just about us. It's also about our clients as men and women and how they're growing their careers and how we're partnering with them.
Yeah, right. So just on referrals, we're going to talk a little bit today about scaling businesses. Why is it that word of mouth is so important to growing a business?
I mean, it's just a direct reflection of the quality of your product more than anything. I don't think referrals actually help you scale a business if you start grassroots like I did. Not because they don't work, it just doesn't work necessarily for where you're going. What I mean by that is when you start and you're doing $250 consulting, $250 accounts tend to hang out and know other $250 accounts.
Yeah.
And so if you want to go from $250 accounts to $50,000 accounts, you can't just rely on word of mouth because they don't know the $50,000 accounts. And so now where I'm at today, word of mouth is like the most important thing because I'm finally where we want to be. And we're not even necessarily there. Like we still have to invest, very, very heavily. I'm talking $50,000 to $100,000 a month in sales and marketing to try to acquire those enterprise accounts. And so it's more now learning, okay, what does that acquisition process look like? And then once you start getting the accounts you dream of, then nothing's more important than word of mouth. But you can't just hope that people will talk to people they don't know. And so, yes, they're important in scaling a business. So if I were to restart and I just had one blue chip account and I wanted to get another, word of mouth would be huge and I could scale through it.
Yeah.
But when you start from nothing, you can't get word of mouth to something. You have to kind of force that. You can't just organically get to that necessarily, at least not in shorter time frames.
So is it a matter of like identifying where you want to be first? So what sort of clients that you want first, and then working towards that rather than growing through your clients?
Yeah,
maybe it's possible, but it's a slower process.
Yeah, so the way we did it was not necessarily like we try to turn every client into a case study. So it's not necessarily inherently word of mouth, but it's quality of work. And so in other words, if I can turn a $250 person into a case study, I can sell that to a $1,000 person, and so on and so on. And that's kind of how we got from $250 to $50,000. It is just slowly understanding that you can't just say you're good. You got to show that you're good, and you got to have the people that'll prove it, and the data and the clients and all those things. And so, it's a process for sure, but the process is really just about developing yourself, developing your company, and choosing exactly what you're saying, what is best for you. Because it's way too hard to run a business to not build something that you're not deeply passionate about yourself. So if you're deeply passionate about the work, it's very difficult to have a very big, I'm deeply passionate about the work. I'm not necessarily deeply passionate about having to do the work myself. So I'm deeply passionate about the work my team does and the culture we build, so that passionate work is a byproduct of every man and woman in the organization. That's what I'm passionate about. See, other men and women are really passionate about individually contributing. That's what gets them excited. That gets their juices flowing, is when they actually did a really cool audit or a really great this or a really great that. And so those people should stay boutique. That doesn't mean you're small, by the way. It doesn't make you mean you make less or more money, by the way, right? Like I personally could theoretically make more money only servicing 3 accounts and having 1 employee, right? Like theoretically, I could have 3 25K accounts that pay $25,000 a month, and I serve them in less hours, less headaches, and less time. But see, I'm deeply passionate about leadership and management and personal development. See, I don't have to get better. I can be kind of a bad human. And not even a bad human. It's not a daily getting better. I mean, I'm not stretched. I'm not in the fire if it's just me and 1 employee. Once you have to start dealing with all these different men and women and their different backgrounds and their different circumstances and figuring out what motivates them, that's, to me, the biggest stretching point for me and getting better as a man as to how I lead people, my character, and all these parts. And so to me, that's what I'm most passionate about, even more so than the money. And so that's why I want to have the large agencies, because I love the growth that results in how I'm priming myself for whatever's next in my life. And I think the only way you can really do truly big, special things is if you're putting yourself in those situations to get ready for it.
Yeah, right. And so I meet a lot of business owners through like Chamber of Commerce and things like that, networking. And I hear it time and time again that they don't advertise, they don't spend a cent on advertising, and that they exist but purely on word of mouth. And it's almost like they're proud of it. Like, I don't spend any money on advertising. And it might be that they're satisfied with where they are, in life. But do you think that combining your passion that you have with word of mouth is enough to scale a business?
To scale a business? No.
Or do you need to invest? Like, do you need to actually invest in paid advertising, content marketing, or do you think the work alone is enough to scale?
No, the work alone isn't a scale, or else I want to be on podcasts every day and speaking at conferences and everything else. I mean, nobody wants to do work that isn't valuable, right?
Yeah.
So, the truth is, if you want to scale, you have to acquire customers faster than you lose them. And if you think you can get up to a certain point and not lose customers and rely on word of mouth, then you're drastically okay with anxiety. Because what you're not understanding is you don't technically own your acquisition channel. You don't have something that you can control or influence. You cannot control or influence word of mouth. You only know so many people, Nathan. At the end of the day, you only know so many people. So after a while, and then I don't close everybody refer. Now, obviously, I love referrals. I mean, they're the best. They close the most. They have the highest close rate. They have the lowest cost per acquisition. Nothing is better than a referral. Don't get me wrong. But I don't get 10 referrals a week to try to grow my company and get to the next level. It doesn't work like that. You're a busy dude. What do you want me to do? Hit you up every week? Hey, Nathan, who else do you know, man? Hey, I know you're paying me all this money, but who else do you know? Right? It's fine if you're trying to be a smaller practice. It's great for boutique. It's great for that. It's a world class. You can pay yourself more. You grow as you grow. It's casual growth. It's comfortable growth. But it's not rapid or scaling growth. No, product can build it in a little better, because remember too, I'm talking professional services. So what I mean by that is I only have 70 accounts. Who the heck, how many referrals can I get? It's not like I'm a software product, right, with 100,000 users that has natural growth referrals built into the product. That's amazing. That's awesome. I'm talking about if you only have so many customers, and you want a ton and you want to be the biggest, you can't be the biggest in anything and rely only on word of mouth outside of software. You can't be the biggest professional services firm, only word of mouth, unless you're a Northwestern Mutual, right? New kid shows up straight out of college. He or she is, their whole job is asking 5 people for references every day. So you can scale it and go like that, but you have to turn people into where they just essentially manipulate and misuse and abuse their own personal networks. And I'm not really, I kind of keep my work life and my personal life separate. So for me, it's, a little different that way.
So how do you scale, say for you create this machine that generates leads and, maybe you're really good at closing. How do you scale safely, financially, for a business that, you don't want to take on too much work that you can't deliver on? You don't want to hire too many staff that you can't keep the sales funnel, the throughput coming in. Yeah. How do you manage the back end, the finances of growing fast?
Okay, so we're going to talk about 3 things here. Number 1, there's a tool called Fathom. It's ridiculously cheap, and it's the best CFO you could ever dream of, and it's better than any CFO I've ever talked to for making decisions. So it's called Fathom. your audience should check it out. World-class tool. I'm talking like 20, $30 a month. Like practically they pay me to use it, and it's amazing. So number one, that helps. Number two, if you can keep your gross profit anywhere between 50 and 60%, and you're not silly with expenses and not buying dumb things, which a lot of us tend to do, myself included, I have to fight those urges, you'll be okay. And then as long as you keep your sales, marketing, and overall costs of acquisition, your cost of sales, as long as that's 10% of your revenue, you'll never run out of money.
Yeah.
So, try to target 50 to 60% gross profit margin. Don't overspend in any areas. And then keep your cost of sales, your sales, marketing, salaries, your advertising costs, all of that at 10% of revenue. And you'll grow like crazy.
Did you say 50 to 60% profit margin or 15 to 16?
50 to 60 gross profit margin. So on your cost of goods sold. So on the delivery of what people are paying for. On the net, net is different for everybody for a lot of reasons. So I don't worry about that's mostly based on executive decision making when it comes to net. In my opinion, gross profits, the actual reality of delivering what you sold, and you want to make sure you can deliver at about 50 to 60. Either means you need to cut costs or raise prices. So,
sure. Okay. What have been some of the traps that you've experienced yourself along the way as you've grown?
I think two things, really big things I've learned, especially in the last 6 months. Coaching and training are entirely different, and 99.9% of us do training, and almost nobody does coaching, and we all need to be doing coaching and not training. Training is having a learning management system, having checklists, having learning guides, having SOPs. That's training. You show up. Training is things that the individual can do on their own to a certain extent. Mm-hmm. Coaching is where someone sits with you and works with you. They watch you work. You talk out loud. You hold their hand through the process. You say, okay, now I want you to click here. Okay, now I want you to click here. Okay, cool. Now where are we from what we did yesterday? Okay, let's walk through that together. Coaching is like doing life, or aka doing work with somebody, holding them accountable, and then walking them through everything. That's what everybody needs to be doing, and most of us don't value enough. So that's one big thing. The other thing,
it's a huge investment. That coaching is a huge investment in somebody, time-wise. If you're taking a key person in your company, to spend I assume a substantial amount of time getting them up to speed.
Yep.
How do you weigh that up? Because in my experience, I've struggled with that. I've probably failed in terms of how much coaching a new employee needed, but at the same time trying to balance giving the people a bit of autonomy and letting them do their own thing. How do you how much time would you invest in a new employee, for example?
Whatever you're doing, probably twice as much for anybody listening.
Yeah.
So it's two times the current, I would argue. Nothing's more important than the quality of people. So here's how it works for me in professional services. Okay, I don't know if everyone there's read Jim Collins and the Flywheel Effect, but you should. It's in Good to Great. It's an awesome book, and part of that's the Flywheel Effect. But the way it works essentially for my business is acquire great accounts. Step one. Step two, match those great accounts to great talent. Okay. Mm-hmm. The reason this is so important is great talent can be at capacity. In other words, if you say, that each person at the company has to service 3 to 5 accounts, people have to be good enough to service, let's say, 5 accounts. If they're not, they can only service 2. What does that mean? They're drastically lowering your revenue per head count or your gross profit. There's no money left. So, right? What happens then? So you have great accounts. Step 1. Step 2, great people. Step 3, great gross profit. Step 4, great sales and marketing. And then it goes in a circle. And you keep going. So great sales and marketing gets you great accounts. You match it with great people. The great people have great gross profit. Because there's great gross profit, there's money left over to go get new accounts. And you create a rapidly scaling business based on understanding the drivers of your business. See, I had always missed the great talent part. And I believe that, I could just train somebody and, they'll kind of learn through the fire. This doesn't really work that way. For me personally, I'm the CEO. When I wanted to get out of sales, I had the person I wanted to take over in my office for over a month, watching every proposal, watching every SOW. I gave up all my privacy, And I didn't like sit with them all day, but I had them essentially in every single solitary conversation I had every day.
Shadowing
And then I was in all of their conversations. So they started practicing, right? So I have this model called learn, engage, create. So if you learn something new and you actually engage with it, this is a key part. A lot of people learn and hope they create, but they don't engage. So as long as you learn something new and you practice it, you engage with it, you can create more value for yourself and the customer. So learn, engage, create. And so I was going through this process, brought him into the office. Now I'm watching what he does. I'm on all of his proposals. I give him feedback afterward. I take notes. We coach each other up. Next thing you know, he's closing at a higher percentage than I was because he had that support. And so now when the leader models it, now my other leaders are modeling it, because in an organization, you're not as good as your best person, you're as good as your worst person. I don't care if it's a sport or a company. And so you got to have a bottom-up mentality, and that bottom-up usually needs more coaching than they need training. So that's kind of number one. And then number two is people do what you inspect, not what you expect. And so a lot of times you ask someone, hey, Nathan, can you do this for me? And you're like, yeah, I'm on it. Cool. All right, man. And then you forget about it. Now the key is say, okay, Nathan, can you walk me through exactly what you did? I'd love to, work with, love for you to show me your process and how you got where you got. And I'm going to be checking in on Friday at 3:00. Let's make sure we can do it together. Now, all of a sudden, Nathan has to do it a certain way because he knows it's going to be inspected. You'd be amazed at how often managers have clear expectations and forget the process or follow-up of inspection and then wonder why and are surprised when they do find out 3 months later, oh my God, this person's been doing this whole time, because you didn't inspect. And so those are some big things I'm learning as the organization is growing, is those two really important things.
Yeah, awesome. Has there been have you got any advice on attracting really good people to your team? Has there been anything along the way that's clicked that you've gone, right, that's how I get true talent?
Paid internships. It allows you to drastically decrease onboarding cost, and also create a level of earning the job that you can't. So a lot of people hire junior talent full-time. They have no way of screening the junior talent because you're hiring based on perceived character, and you understand there's a lack of competency around hard skills, and so you kind of just hope. I was there. I did it for 5 years. Now we have a pretty robust internship program where we get to interview a lot more people, bring a lot more people into the organization. We then get to see who's successful. You still pay them. They're still contributing in that way, but they're learning. They're really just going through essentially your training program, but in an internship instead of a full-time job. You're paying them, maybe 75% less to get 100% of the same product. And so, internships are a great way for that, especially in industries where it's very difficult to find, like mine, it's very difficult to find senior talent and senior value. You can find senior talent, they usually can't create senior value. And so you're overpaying for what you get, right? Like potential is potential and cost is guaranteed. And so you have to really understand, like, talent is potential and cost is guaranteed. So you're much riskier hiring a more expensive individual, and you also are going to have higher standards for that person in shorter time frames. And a lot of times that's why frustration ensues, is because you're paying this person a lot, and so you had high expectations for this person, but you didn't give them enough timeline to meet those expectations, and so the relationship breaks.
Yeah. Set up for failure.
Yeah.
Effectively. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm conscious of taking up too much of your time. If we can sort of summarize this, if there's any overall sort of tip or advice you could give us for, say, someone who's in the six-figure range, they might have 1 or 2 staff and they're trying to grow, they're trying to expand, get to 7 figures, maybe 8 figures. What's your best advice to sort of push through? Maybe they're stuck.
I think just a recognition that you're stuck because of yourself and nothing else. And really decide what you want as a man or a woman with your life. Not like, if it's what you truly want is money, then go after money. If it's leadership, go after leadership. If it's freedom, go after freedom. But don't do what I'm doing because of what I call compare and despair. Don't compare yourself to people who don't want what you want. That's the biggest thing that I struggle with, and I think every entrepreneur struggles with, is we see these men and women are hyper successful, and we think, I want that. The problem is you want what they have, but you don't want what they wanted.
Yeah.
In other words, The only reason that person got to where they're at is because that's what they truly wanted in their core, and it was for a different reason. Because you can't go through all the crap of building something big if it's not for a bigger reason. And so if you don't have a bigger reason, be okay with what your reason is and love on your reason. Build a community around people who share your values and your reasons. But don't you dare try to build something that isn't you, because it'll fail. You won't have the energy, the heart, or the commitment when things get horrible to stick it out. I guarantee you it'll get horrible because it wasn't truly what you wanted.
Yeah.
And figure out what that is, and from there it'll help you get there, because it doesn't get easier, it only gets harder, and it has to be truly what you want for you to be able to get great through the process.
That's awesome advice. Garrett, if any of our listeners want to reach out to you, how can they find you?
Yeah, first initial last name at directiveconsulting.com. So G Mehrguth, Mehrguth. That's GMEHRGUTH at directiveconsulting.com, or at Mehrguth on Twitter, Garrett Mehrguth on LinkedIn, sales at Directive Consulting. If you can't type my name, totally fine. But I'd love to chat with you. Anything you have, any career stuff, marketing stuff, life stuff. But yeah, love to connect, and if you're a fit for us, love to also work together.
Awesome. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
All right, thanks, Nathan.
See ya. Awesome advice there from Garrett. As always, if you enjoyed this podcast, it'd be awesome if you could leave us a rating or a review on iTunes. And you can, of course, subscribe to us on Spotify, and you'll see the video version of this podcast on YouTube. Thanks very much for listening, and I'll see you in the next podcast.